Hello and welcome to Grieve on a Tuesday night, number 23. I just thought I'd do one today because I've realised it's been over a year since going to the group therapy classes, and another reason it sort of popped into my head is because I've mentioned it to someone else the other day. One of my neighbours lost their husband. They'd been together for decades. They've lived near us for as long as we've been here. Sort of one of those neighbours where you always say hello, but don't really interfere any further than that. You know, it's all sort of niceties and waving and whatever. But and that's fine. That's there's nothing wrong with that at all. And then the other day, just sort of heard a voice while I was just popping something in the bin, and she told me what had happened, and I've spoken to her since as well. But I just mentioned the therapy because at the end of the day, I know it's not for everybody. But looking back, I could only tell her how helpful it was for me, how helpful it was just to be speaking to other people in, if not necessarily the same boat, you've all got a common reason for being there. Like we were told, there's no one-upmanship with your grief. No one's got it more than someone else. Everybody's suffering with it. And she told me a few things that were going on, which really sort of rang true. And she said, "I'm worried because I do this or that." And I said, "You know what? The one thing I was told was you're not doing anything wrong. It takes you into some weird fucking places and some dark fucking places. Whatever you do, nothing's wrong. Don't worry." And in my case, it was anger, and still is sometimes, quite frankly, but more so then. And dealing with people, dealing with the aftermath, dealing with the paperwork, people on the phones, giving that standard line, "Oh, we're so sorry." You don't give a shit, and I know that. And she was sort of going through that in a minute, and she did say that her husband was pretty good in terms of how he'd sort of left things, and obviously that was a help because it wasn't quite so much for me. But yeah, I really missed those lessons. I mean, once it finished, there was an opportunity a little while later to start speaking one-on-one, because once you've done your 6 or 7 weeks of your group stuff, you can't really sort of do anything else apart from go solo, which I don't think any of us at the group particularly wanted to do. All thought it was best for them. And it seemed quite an expensive thing to just be talking to someone on the phone. I mean, at least if you're talking to someone face to face, they're there. It's a lot easier as far as I'm concerned. You can see them. You're dealing with their sort of expressions, how they see you, and everything else, how they react to you. If you're just talking on the phone, I think that's quite impersonal myself. But it really just wasn't for me. But yeah, I told her who it was and said, "Look, if you feel like it, just give them a shout." But the one thing I was really after our initial talk, when she told me what had gone on, the second time I spoke, I just said that I wanted to make it really, really clear that I wasn't one of those people who just said, "Oh, well, if you need anything," but the reality was they weren't going to be there for you. It was just a token gesture. It's almost as bad, and it's obviously worse, but than the people on the phone who don't know you. They say things, but they don't mean it. When you hear it off your so-called friends at the time, you think you can rely on them, but you realize there are ones out there that you absolutely can't rely on, and they've got no interest in hearing what you've got to say or helping you at all. And conversely, there are then one or two people who definitely do, and have been and are still being incredibly supportive. And fuck me, it helps so much, because without that, it would be It would be pretty fucking impossible, quite frankly. Again, probably a bit like I said in some of the earlier ones, little trigger things. I'm having that a lot recently. Doesn't seem to matter what it is. Things are sort of pushing me, sort of prodding me a little bit, little reminders and stuff like that. But I've said to her, I'm one of those people who, if you do need something, please knock on the door. It doesn't matter what time it is, and I mean it. Knock on my door and I will help, whether it's giving you a lift somewhere, whether it's, whatever it is. Please, please, please knock on the door. I was fortunate with a person I met walking the dog, who I see, most days, who was an immense help and continues to be an immense help. And I'd say a couple of friends who've just been just outstanding in just keeping in touch all the time. Despite having things going on in their own lives and whatever, but it was just a shame it was 6 or 7 weeks. It almost really wasn't long enough. I would have liked to have carried it on. I was sort of looking forward to Tuesday night, because it was just a release. It was with people who understood. I go back to one where I was struggling. We were supposed to bring in an item. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I just couldn't bring anything in. I thought, oh my God, these people are going to think I'm fucking horrible, and maybe not taking it seriously enough, or I don't know what. And of course, I ended up going last, which made me internally feel even worse, because I thought this is going to be a fucking disaster. But the understanding from everyone was on a different level, and I just remember coming back, and this is what I said to this, our neighbour. That was such a massive boost, because, quite frankly, I do remember the one thing that night was that I was going to make an excuse and just say I was ill and not go. And I was so pleased that I didn't do that. Because it would have been a waste anyway. But that level of understanding from other people in those situations was absolutely immense. I suppose the only sad thing was that the group didn't sort of continue really. We had one meetup between three of us, and slowly but surely the sort of WhatsApp group started to dwindle away to the point where it was a bit pointless having it on your phone. And that was probably the only sad part. I don't know how many groups generally stick together as they go along. Everyone goes on with their own lives. I get that, but I think you form that sort of bond over 6 or 7 weeks, and but I'd do it again. I'd do it again in a heartbeat, without question. But fuck, it's been a year. It's been a year since doing those classes, and it really just came to mind when I was speaking with our neighbour. So there we go. That's where we're at right now. We've had, I think, since the last one, we had a trip to Turkey for the football, which was a real experience, somewhere I've wanted to go and see anyway, as well as going to see the football there, because they're so sort of insanely fanatical. We went to Fenerbahce in Istanbul, stayed on the European side because of the logistics of actually getting to the place on game day, where we had to be at a certain point, roughly at a certain time. So we had to stay close to Sultanahmet Square. But then they take you on a sort of long journey, which eventually goes over that Bosphorus bridge and into Asia. And suddenly think, oh my God, I'm going into Asia for the first time ever. And it sort of lived up to the expectations. They were noisy, they were loud, very fanatical. I think bust a bit of a myth about being intimidating, because it wasn't. They didn't have any special welcomes for us in terms of their fans. I mean, there was a lot of searches and holdbacks and stuff going on in terms of the police operation, but nothing bad at all, and nothing, apart from one or two fans. One guy over to the right was giving it sort of outside cutthroat gestures, and but the rest of it was just normal. It was like normal banter between clubs, and I felt they were almost more of a almost like an English style of sport. They were really loud, but they did react to the game. They weren't like the ones with ultras who just sort of blindly go on throughout the entire game and don't really react to what's going on the pitch. They definitely did, because as the game went on and we got on top, they went quiet. And it was only in the latter stages where they started to come back into it and thought they'd scored, and they made a heck of a noise then. And we thought, fuck, we've got 15 minutes of this now to sort of hang on. And luckily VAR ruled out the goal for offside. It was John Duran, one of our ex-players. But yeah, the noise they made, I mean, someone with mild tinnitus, the first 10 minutes was hard because they were whistling like every time we had the ball, which is a normal thing, but the intensity of it and the loudness of it was something else. It was just like everybody was doing it. But yeah, it was a great experience, and Istanbul was like a massive, massive, massive place, just full of sort of cats and car horns and cigarettes and key rings with an eye on it, and but it was it was an incredible place, and I'm just hoping we might get to go back again in May for the final, but that's a long way away. There's 3 rounds of games before we could even think about that. We've got to wait till the end of this month, where the 2-legged playoffs will have happened, and then there's a draw made to see who plays Lyon and who plays us. So it could be Celta Vigo, could be PAOK, could be Red Star Belgrade, could be Lille. I suppose selfishly, I hope it's Red Star, because bigger ground, hopefully a decent allocation, somewhere new to go, real famous European name. I know they're called something else now, but I know them as Red Star Belgrade. But Lille, we've been there and done it. We don't really need to go there again. That would be my second choice, only because of the size of the ground. Now, PAOK and Celta Vigo have got a lot smaller grounds, which would make getting hold of tickets a lot more, not necessarily impossible, but more difficult, and sort of depending on how many Villa give away themselves as well. So we'd have to wait and see. But it's been looking back, it's been an incredible sort of few years. I'd been to 5 European aways anyway, but I was sort of looking back and thinking, wow, I've sort of been to like the old Czechoslovakia, and including like the ones we've done in the last 3 years, sort of Italy and Spain and Czech Republic, Poland, Holland, France, Germany, obviously Turkey just done, and Switzerland, and some of those 2-3 times over, for different teams like Germany. I think we've done 4 now. But yeah, it's a nice list, and yeah, I'm sort of hoping that's why if Red Star comes up, then sort of Serbia would be a new, a new country. And funnily enough, when we flew into Turkey, I got a couple of pings saying "Welcome to, welcome to Serbia" on my phone with O2. We must have been flying low enough to have picked that up before we then got to Turkey and got that. But that's one for any O2 users going to Turkey. You've got to get a bolt on. You can't just use your data. You've got to do something else before you can do that. And when you're using maps and stuff and you're out and about, then you do need it really. So yeah, we've football wise, it's sort of dropped off a little bit in 2026. Couple of real sort of poor home defeats, like Everton and Brentford, especially. Like Brentford with 10 men and went behind while they had 10 men, and then just could not break them down at all. Of course, yeah, they used the dark arts and every trick in the book, but we just weren't really capable of breaking them down. A good away win at Newcastle, really good, where you think, right, okay. And then a draw at Bournemouth at a weekend. In isolation, maybe it's a good point, but it's putting the pressure on now because there's a lot of teams trying to catch us, and they're much closer behind now. And come Wednesday night against Brighton, it's to me it's become a must win now, Brighton, and then Leeds the next league game that follows. We've got Newcastle in between in the cup, but So yeah, we're looking for 6 points from the next 2 home games before we go on to Wolves. And yeah, music wise, there's not a massive amount sort of going on for me at the moment. Sort of gig wise, we're a little way off any of the gigs this year. Sort of album wise, more up to date. Alter Bridge just brought theirs out, which obviously I spoke about in the last one. I've not really got any more into it than probably where I was last time either. I've got some songs that I like on there, but for me, there's still like the first 4 albums are the best, and they've sort of tailed off after that. But that's that's just a personal opinion. But I have actually, I did actually treat myself just for once and bought myself an electric guitar. So my few chords that I actually know, I've been able to pound out on an electric guitar, and I got the local shop that I went to. The guy was so helpful; he was brilliant. Took all the time in the world with me. Tried about 4 before I sort of plumped on this one. Didn't go very expensive because it was like an entry level, but really nice. Makes some lovely sound, and the amp with it, although it's like quite a small looking thing, the noise is incredible. It really is. And not only that, but it's got so many options on it, and it's got this little button for the sort of almost like the distorted sound where you play it and then it becomes like really, really loud. And all of a sudden you're playing like sort of you could be in a metal band. I've got a slight issue with my left hand where I broke my elbow when I was about 6, and it just meant that I've got slight less movement in my left hand than the right. So obviously, when you're trying to sort of pick out chords and whatever else, it's slightly more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult. So really, I've just got to find a sort of online module I could go with just to sort of ease me into it gently and sort of add a little bit more knowledge than the sort of small amount that I've got right now. But yeah, it's something to something to sort of lock into, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a hobby as such, but yeah, I'm looking forward to giving that a go. And like I say, yeah, I've got a nice guitar strap, a stool to sit on. It sounds really basic, but it's all sort of stuff you need. Got the amp as well, and just a stand, which looks pretty nice with the guitar set on it, and almost like quite arty. It's like having a picture on the wall. It just looks really nice. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, over a year since the therapy classes, I would absolutely go back in a heartbeat if I was offered the chance to go back and do another 7 weeks. I would grasp that chance, no doubt about it. I would really do it. And yeah, it's all very well me recommending it, but it's really what suits the individual concerned. But I would, I'd recommend it 100%. But that's it for now. And yeah, take care, everyone. Speak soon.